Hello, we're back here with Learning Guide 8, continuing on. We're looking at example 2 here, and this example is looking at point of discontinuity, which we call PODs, and versus asymptotes. All right. So how do we know the difference? So when we look at a function and first thing we want to look at is to see if there's a vertical asymptote. So let's look at this first function right here. So remember, the vertical asymptote comes from the bottom. So if I take that out and I can factor it, so 2 is common, so I get 2 minus x. Then you make it equal 0, because remember the bottom cannot equal 0. It's undefined. So x equals 2, because if I put the 2 into there, 2 take away 2 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. Okay? So there is my vertical asymptote. Now, if you can factor the top and you cross out this guy right here, this bracket right here, this vertical asymptote is no longer a vertical asymptote. It becomes a point of discontinuity. So let's have a look at this top one here. So we factor out an x, and we get x minus 2. All right. So when we look at this, people say, well, is that a point of discontinuity? Well, it's hard to compare, because if I write this out, I'll just come down here. And so I got x minus 2 on top. And on the bottom, I have 2 and 2 minus x on the bottom. So at first, this and this aren't the same. They don't look the same. But I can turn this guy around by doing what's called the opposite rule, factoring out a negative 1. So that makes it negative 2, because remember, negative 1's coming out and you're timesing that guy. And that switches this around to x minus 2 on the bottom. Now on top, I still have this. And now you can see that this and this can cancel out. So now I have a POD where x equals 2. So this is not an asymptote. Okay, so just watch out for that. A POD versus a vertical asymptote. Okay, let's look at this other example. Very similar, but slightly different, because the top is going to be x and x plus 2. And remember, the bottom is the same. So I'll just go right to the factoring, x minus 2. So you notice that this guy right here and this guy, you cannot cross out because they're not the same. One's x plus 2 and the other is x minus 2. So this is a vertical asymptote where x equals 2. Okay, no POD. All right, down here when you have to match, the easiest way to match, I find, is I go right to the factoring, because I can see things can factor. So this is x and x plus 2. This is x plus 2 and x minus 2. Now when you notice that this crosses off this, we have a point of discontinuity at x minus 2. So when I look at these three graphs, graph 1, graph 2, graph 3, I'm looking for a hole at negative 2, and there it is. So I know this one matches that one. All right, this one cannot factor, so therefore there's no asymptotes. So the only one that doesn't have asymptotes is graph 3, and then I can, by reason of deduction, I know that's graph 1. Because if I factor this x plus 2, x minus 2. Nothing can cross off, so my vertical asymptotes are x equals 2, x equals negative 2, and then you can see those asymptotes. All right, the next part we are going to write equations. Okay, so there's a little format that you should get the hang of when you're writing rational equations. Is this format helps me out. So I have an A, which is like a horizontal asymptote, so you can call that the horizontal asymptote. And then you got bracket. The x-intercepts, they'll go on top with the PODs. And on the bottom you have the vertical asymptotes and the PODs. All right, so there's just a little format that helps for writing equations. Okay, so let's look at the information given and let's get an equation. So the first thing I'm looking for I have is a vertical asymptote of 3. So I know that's going to go in the bottom and it's opposite, because remember it comes out of the bracket. I have an x-intercept of negative 4, so that's x plus 4. Again, remember it's the opposite. I have a horizontal asymptote of 2, so that goes into the front. And then I have a point of discontinuity. I only care about the x. Remember, we're dealing with the x's here. Don't care about that y. So x minus 1 and x minus 1. Make sure you put it top and bottom. Don't FOIL. Just keep it like that. Okay, the next one. Sometimes you're not given a vertical asymptote. Oops. Pardon me, a horizontal asymptote. See, it's not there. So we have to go find it using algebra. So let's write our little template. I write it every time, so then I get the habit of having it memorized. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to look at the x-intercepts. So x minus 3. The POD, x plus 1, x plus 1, and we have a vertical asymptote of 2, so x minus 2. We don't have an A. Okay, so we need to find this A. And how we find it is we use a point. Okay, now this is a point. Negative 1, 8 is a point. So we can use this as the x and this as the y, plug it in, and find A. You're going to leave these guys off when you're trying to find A, because if you plug it in, you'll get 0 over 0, so just leave it off. Now we're just going to do a little bit of algebra. So we have negative 4a over negative 3. And then we're going to times this side by negative 3 to wipe that out. Times this side by negative 3. So we get negative 24 equals negative 4a divided by negative 4 divided by negative 4. So A equals 6. Now once you got the A, you have to rewrite it. So the answer is y equals 6 x minus 3 x plus 1 x minus 2 x plus 1. All right, so there's the answer. Don't FOIL.